I want to talk through a recent creative hack that I have been experiencing and applying to my daily creative work and hobbies and interests. And I think it's really cool. So basically, I have been, instead of trying to pursue a creative project and say, all right, here's my attempt, and then I'm done with it, I have been thinking of how I can utilize this idea of first drafts or the first draft to take the pressure off and just enjoy getting to create, enjoy trying something new in my creativity. So this has been really cool. And yeah, as I've been stepping into new creative things like writing and so many different things, I have felt the pressure taken off when I'm approaching these ideas and going, all right, when I'm attempting to create or when I'm trying to come up with some new idea or something creative, it's okay if I don't get this right the first time. And for me, in the past, as a younger artist, as a younger creative, I always felt like I had to produce something or create something that was like as good as it could be at the very first try. And that created a lot of pressure. And most of the time, that was just me putting that on myself. No one was necessarily asking me to create something and get it right without any trial or error, right? And yeah, so I just kind of wanted to talk through how this concept could potentially help you, and yeah, some of the practical ways that I've been experiencing getting to utilize this idea of first draft. So over the last year or so, I have been feeling really compelled to start writing. And at first it was this idea that came to me, and I had some encouragement from friends who were like, you should write a book. Like, you have what it takes to write a whole book, be creative in that way, express yourself. And it was sort of this open-ended idea in my mind. I was like, I think I could write a book. It's not something I'd ever necessarily considered in a realistic way. And so I had this idea of like, yeah, I should just write a book. And I don't know, I'm sure you do the same thing where I'm like, before I die, I'm gonna write a book, you know, or then it turned into like, sometime in the next 10 years, I will write a book, right? Eventually it got to the point where I started to think, why can't I not just write a book now? And I had actually someone, I met one of my favorite authors, Bob Goff, and he is a writer and a speaker. And I was talking to him, I just said, hey, I like your books, I like your writings. And it's possible he says this to a lot of different people, but he said, if you like what someone else is writing, it probably means you have a book in you. It probably means you should write something. And that encouragement was very timely because I'd been having conversations with my wife about how I was feeling compelled to write a book, and not just in the far off future, but like now. And he just encouraged me. He's like, yeah, just write a little every day. You're going to have a book done before you know it. And so that encouraged me to, one, think of what I was working on then as far as writing, and to consider it part of that process, right? Every word that you're writing, every little writing session that you put yourself in for, that's eventually going to lead to a book, or it's going to lead to the first draft that's going to lead to the second draft, right? You get the idea. And so this concept of thinking through, okay, is this my first draft, or am I creating something and no one's going to see this version? And so does that give me more freedom to then create? And for me, it really has. It has completely changed kind of how I'm viewing what I'm able to do. It's opened me up to be able to say, man, this is cool if I can just show up, and whether it's writing or you have another hobby or another creative outlet, being able to show up and say, this is not the final version. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm just going to show up and create. And yeah, I think that's been a really fun process for me. Often I'm thinking, you know, if I'm sure you've experienced this, where you're creating something and you're already thinking of what someone else would say about it. You're already in the critique process. And when you're trying to be a critic of something, that is hindering you from the creative process. Those two processes should most often not be happening at the same time. The creative process and the critiquing process, those should be separated as much as possible. And so this whole thing with first drafts has just been an encouragement to me to say, hey, let me show up, let me create, and it's just give me a lot more freedom. Another example is like in these videos. In a lot of ways, I'm showing up, I'm making one YouTube video every week. And there is some pressure to that for sure, because this is the video, this is what's gonna go out. And I take this as serious as I can without taking myself too serious, I guess would be a good way to do it, or to think about it. But yeah, I also know that if I don't nail an idea, or if I feel like I fumbled an aspect of the video for this week, there's always next week. And so even right there, I'm like, redo the take. No, we're sticking with it, right? So yeah, it's a cool process for you as an artist. Is there a way for you to show up in this way and say, I'm just gonna show up every week and create, or I'm just gonna show up and make that first draft and not worry about what this is supposed to look like, or feel like I'm letting myself down due to potential, but just showing up and being the artist that you were created to be. That would be my encouragement. In my role right now for work, I work for my church and I do communications. I have had this concept totally unlocked for me in a new way, and it's taken a lot of pressure off of my work. So I was tasked many months ago, I was tasked to create 5 videos for our church, 5 stories. Find 5 people in our church and tell their story. And there's some specific parameters around what those should look like and what the goal of that is. So I felt pretty overwhelmed. And you would think like, okay, I'm showing up every week on these YouTube videos, but just the pressure, and no one is intentionally putting the pressure on me in this, but there's pressure for me to show up and say, all right, I gotta have 5 videos. Sometimes for me, big projects, big picture stuff can actually be overwhelming because I lose track of like, okay, what's the first step? And I'm so often thinking about the big idea that the first step just seems too overwhelming. So recently I actually had all the staff that I work with give me 2 people's names and basically, hey, what story are we trying to tell? What is God doing in their life and how are we celebrating that? And so between all the staff, I had a bunch of names, right? Like 30 plus names of people that I can reach out to. So what I started doing is I just started reaching out to people. I kind of picked the 5 or 7 names that I thought would be great to start with. And I just started calling those people and called up some people and just said, hey, I just want to have a phone call with you. I want to ask you some questions about what God's been doing in your life lately. And I'm just going to record that phone call. And maybe that's content, written content that goes on our website. Maybe that eventually turns into a video. But for the most part, I didn't even lead with that. I didn't even say, yeah, this might be a huge video that we put up. Because also people feel overwhelmed by that. As much as I'm feeling overwhelmed at having to create a video, they're probably feeling overwhelmed being asked to be in a video. That's how I always used to do video storytelling in my job, is I would just, especially if I got a name from someone and they said, yeah, this would be a good person for a video, then I would go, okay, let's schedule a time to film the video. And then in real time, as we're recording and I spent time setting up cameras and lighting, I'm having to work with this person and try to figure out like, okay, what's the story here? And then often in editing, that would require me to spend a lot of time trying to make the story work and make sense. And I think the videos suffered because of that. And so I am approaching these stories in a much different way. My lens as I'm looking at this is going, all right, the goal isn't to have a perfect video by the time, as soon as I'm reaching out to someone. The goal is, hey, I'm reaching out to someone, they have a story to tell, they have something unique, God is working in their life, and what is that? Let's draw that out. And I may have a conversation with someone and choose to say, hey, let's pursue this further. Or I could ask someone else on staff, hey, here's a transcript or a recap of the phone call and the interview that we had. What do you think? what would this look like to craft this into a different story? And then for some people, it's like, hey, we just had a great phone call, and maybe they don't want their interview to be used, or we're going to turn that into some a written article on the website. But it just takes so much pressure off of this idea of like, you need to come up with 5 stories. And yeah, that has been my practical experience with just utilizing this idea of first drafts, and how it's totally saved my creativity in this season. I think I'm experiencing a lot of new things, like we talked about with the writing. I'm just saying yes to a lot of new creative processes, and saying, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to spend some of my time. And I'm feeling pretty good about that. And so, yeah, it's been cool. It's been fun to explore that. I hope for you this is encouraging. I guess a question to end here would be, how can your creativity benefit from just creating a first draft, or not pressuring yourself to have to create the final product on the first go? When you're starting something brand new, especially a new creative idea, you're painting something for the first time, or you're trying something out, there is no way you're going to be good at it. This isn't, Lisan al-Gaib. Like no one is perfect, and no one's gonna be able to do great work. The artists that we see that are these amazing people that we lift up, the hours and the time and the first drafts that they had to create, would not be, they wouldn't have created the amazing things without the first drafts. So yeah, that would just be my encouragement for you, is how our first drafts, how can you incorporate that into your creative workflow, your experience, and just being able to show up every day as an artist, show up for yourself, be able to create authentically. My name is Tristan. I hope that this video encouraged you, and would love to know your thoughts on the way that you have utilized first drafts